Currently in the United States, the average income is in the neighborhood of $50,000, but for some people, it's a little more than that. Many people may assume that because we are currently living in the richest period in human history, the richest person to ever live is currently alive right now. For a little more information about this, we can turn to Forbes' billionaire list released this past March. The list outlines the richest people currently alive. Starting at number 10, we have Liliane Bettencourt, who owns the L'Oreal Corporation, which basically makes everything from makeup to, well, makeup. In addition to makeup, she also has around $40 billion. Number 8 and 9 is occupied by the family of the late Sam Walton, the founder of Walmart and Sam's Club, who each have around $40 billion. Number 6 and 7 are tied at $42.9 billion. Charles and David Koch have earned their immense fortune through the Koch brothers Corporation, which basically handles oil and Congress. Next up is Larry Ellison. Ellison, worth about $54.3 billion, owns the Oracle Corporation, better known as Java Update now available. Number 4 is Amancio Ortega, who owns a Spanish fashion design business called Zegna. You've likely never heard of this incredibly wealthy man because of the simple and private lifestyle he prefers to keep. He was never photographed until 1999 and doesn't even wear his own products, but with a net worth of $64.5 billion, he probably could. Third is Warren Buffett, who derives his wealth of almost $72.7 billion from Berkshire Hathaway. Berkshire Hathaway, by the way, basically owns pretty much everything. The runner-up is the lesser-known Carlos Slim, who has built a telecom empire in Latin America. He has around $77.1 billion. The list ends, of course, with Bill Gates as the richest person alive. Gates has a fortune of roughly $79.2 billion, most of which he made creating Microsoft. It's worth mentioning at this juncture that he would be far, far richer if he hadn't given so much of his money to charity. Gates has given a total of around $28 billion to charity. So those are the richest people who are currently alive here in good old 2015. But what about in history? Well, as it turns out, Bill Gates and his $79.2 billion doesn't even begin to scratch the surface of the richest people of all time. The fifth richest person to ever live was Andrew Carnegie. Andrew Carnegie saved up his money from working as a telegrapher and used it to invest in railroads, which ended up being a pretty smart move. After earning enough money this way, Carnegie started off a steel empire, which he later sold for $13.6 billion in today's money. Towards the end of his life, Carnegie donated massive amounts of his money to colleges, museums, and more. Adjusted for inflation, Carnegie had around 4 times the wealth of Bill Gates, clocking in at a nice $310 billion. The fourth richest person ever lived was Nathan Rothschild. He originally started as a textile manufacturer in Manchester before he began his financing empire in 1805. Rothschild financed pretty much all of the Napoleonic Wars, but is largely known for his role in abolishing the slave trade. For about 20 million pounds, he made a massive buyout of all the plantation industry slaves, setting thousands free. In today's money, Rothschild had a solid $320 billion. Before the invention of the automobile, most Americans had no use for oil. However, once that milestone had been reached, it was open season. Directly before the invention of the automobile, John D Rockefeller, the poster child of the wealthy, had started a small petroleum business known as the Standard Oil Company. When the car hit the market in the early 1900s, Rockefeller felt a huge surge in sales as he now controlled 90% of America's oil. Of course, Standard Oil was later broken up on charges of monopolization, but many of the baby Standard Oil still exist today. These include Chevron, Exxon, Texaco, and many others, all of which were at one time owned by Rockefeller. Rockefeller also started 3 colleges from the ground up, but was often regarded as Rockefeller instead of Rockefeller due to his ability to put nearly any company out of business, and was largely hated for this reason. Regardless of this, Standard Oil brought him nearly $340 billion. The second wealthiest person to ever live was named Mansa Musa of Mali, who reigned as emperor for roughly 25 years in the 1300s. Mansa Musa constructed an empire and in turn made himself the second wealthiest man to ever live by controlling every last industry in North Africa. From the salt and gold trade to livestock, Mansa Musa was at the helm of it all, earning him a cool $400 billion. Last, and certainly not least, the richest person of all time was coincidentally one of the worst people of all time, Marcus Crassus of Rome. A Roman general and politician, Crassus was a 2-term consul of Rome, or essentially president of the Republic, and together with Caesar and Pompey, he formed the first triumvirate. But where did he make his money? Well, you see, in Rome, there was no public fire department, and Crassus owned one. He also owned a real estate business. So when fires started in Rome, Crassus and his firefighters would arrive on the scene. He would then give the owners of the burning property 3 options. They could either pay Crassus and his soldiers an insane amount of money to put the fire out, they could sell Crassus their home at a dirt cheap price, and Crassus would put the fire out and evict you, or you could let their home burn to the ground. More often than not, however, Crassus was the one who started the fire in the first place. While he was fighting a war, Crassus died at the age of 62, and his death was most befitting. He was captured at war, his mouth held open, and he was made to drink liquid gold, symbolizing his wealth, and also killing him instantly. This might actually be the most poetically satisfying death in human history. Regardless, burning down people's homes turned out to be quite lucrative, and Crassus earned a nice profit profit of around $2 trillion. Now, before we wrap up this video, let's talk about how much money $2 trillion really is. $2 trillion is enough to buy 25% of all the gold that has ever been mined, which is, coincidentally, roughly the amount of gold it would take to fill a high-end U-Haul truck. $2 trillion is enough to pay for the salary of every last congressman for 21,484 years, or enough to buy 83,998,320 brand new cars. $2 trillion is enough money to pay every man, woman, and child alive today $200 and still remain the richest person history has ever seen. But I suppose when you're greedy enough to burn down people's homes for $2 trillion, you're not going to be too keen on giving it away. Did you enjoy this episode? Put a like down there and subscribe to see more. Have you got a question you'd like to see answered? Put it in the comments. We'll be happy to create a video.